Ladies and gentlemen, on the line, I have Robert Martin. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you once again for joining the program.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Good, good. Now, before we get started, tell everyone how much time you've done behind bars.
I was right around 8 years and 7 months.
Okay. Before we even get to what led you to getting locked up behind bars, let's go all the way back. I'd love to get to know you. Where did you grow up?
Okay. In Cincinnati, Ohio.
What was your upbringing like? Was mom around, dad around?
Well, my dad, my mom and dad divorced when me and my twin were two. And so my dad wasn't in the picture at all. Major alcoholic, very abusive, that kind of thing. So yeah, my mom, she couldn't deal with it anymore, and they divorced. In fact, I hadn't met him until I was maybe 14 or 15, something like that.
Maybe you can talk about some of the hardships you experienced without having a pops in the picture.
Well, I guess one of the biggest thing was I was kind of what's the word um, resistant to following my mom's rules and whatnot, and I did get into a lot of trouble doing things that I knew I shouldn't be doing, but it was like I didn't have a father figure, so I felt like I'm doing this all on my own. I'm learning on my own, and so yeah, but it did get me into a bit of trouble. I did a lot of time in like the juvenile court system, like from the age of 15 or something like that, and yeah, so I was smoking weed, I was drinking, and I knew I wasn't supposed to, but like I said, I didn't have a father figure, and she was for a while, she would just kind of let me do my own thing until I ended up going to as they call it, juvie, for selling a weed to an undercover cop, and so that didn't go well. I went up to Sears one year, and some friends of mine gave me some money to go get some stuff so that we can go camping, and I was drunk that morning. I went up to the mall. The store wasn't open, but I was drunk. I didn't even realize it. So I was just like checking out all of the doors, and I finally found a door that was open. I go into the mall there, into Sears, and I'm, getting the stuff, but I wasn't even realizing the fact that most of the lights were out. There were some lights on. So I ended up getting everything that I needed to get, and there was nobody around. I'm like, you know what? I don't have anybody to pay this money to, so I'll just take the stuff. And I remember coming out of the mall. I was walking through the empty parking lot, and then all of a sudden, all these cops were pulling up on me from all different directions, and and so I ended up going back to juvenile prison, if you want to call it that. And things from there just kind of took a downward spiral. And but again, I was kind of defiant, and I really didn't care too much about whatever. And but then my mom started being abusive towards me ever since that point. And that didn't work out. And so she kept telling me and my brother, she couldn't wait till we turned 18 so we can get the hell out of her house. And so the day that we turned 18, it was 3 days later actually, that we ended up moving out. We'd already gone and found a place to live and whatnot. And she had the nerve to be like, oh, where are you guys going? And I told her, I said, hey, you told us when we were 18 that we had to leave. So this is what we're doing. So yeah. And we didn't really have much of a relationship after that. And then for a long time, I actually hadn't even spoken to her. I think, I don't know, maybe like from the age of 19 till now, I think I've spoken to her maybe 3 or 4 times, but we don't have a relationship. I haven't talked to her in a long time. I just didn't really care about it. You know what I mean? So, So I didn't really have a mother figure either. And it was kind of rough, but and then, and some years later, after my kids were born, I went and I screwed up and got into some sort of altercation with, my baby's mama and her mother. And, and I ended up, in fact, before they even came over to the house, I had taken my gun apart and I was cleaning it. And then they showed up, and then we got into this argument, and her mom went to go take a swing at me, and I kind of stopped her from doing that, and I pushed her up against the wall, and I had parts of my gun in my other hand, and with one hand I was holding her against the wall, and I was like, you know what, I don't need this, so I left. And so my kids were there, my baby's mom was there, her mother was there. I left, to try to cool off, calm down. And when I got back, I had already put my gun back together, and there's cops in my yard. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? And so I go inside. I had my gun in the back of my pants, kind of halfway in my pants, halfway sticking out. And the cops were like, are you Robert Martin? And I'm like, yes. What's going on? And he said that that they told him that I physically assaulted her mom with a gun. And I was like, no, that's not how this happened. And, some other nonsense went on. And by the time it was all said and done, I was arrested for it. And then they started stacking other charges on me, like child endangerment, kidnapping, all these things. And so, drug possession, stuff like that. And, so I go to the jail there downtown, and they told me, he said, hey, well, you need to just kick back for a little bit. You ain't going nowhere. You got $100,000 bond, all these things. And I'm like, what? And so, it took me a minute to kind of like realize what the hell was going on. And I get in there into the jail, and I'm there for about a week, and I'm trying to find out what's going on and this and that. And I finally got a public defender, and she told me, she says, yeah, well, it looks like, it looks like you're going to be doing like 39 years. I'm like, for what?
Damn.
And, yeah. So, so anyway, she broke it down and told me what was going on. And, I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And so, so then we waited to go to trial, and she told me, she says, well, they're going to come to me with like 3 different, what do you call it? Pleas.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was 3 to 18 years. I said, no, I'm not taking that. I didn't do anything wrong. And so, they came with a second offer, and that was 0 to 9. And she said, so what's going to happen is they're going to give you, he's going to sentence you to 9 years. He's going to suspend 4, and then I'll have 5 years, but it'll be on probation. And I'm like, where do I sign? And, so, yeah. So, and then we get in there, go to, I had already signed the plea, and, we're there for sentencing, and the judge, he did sentence me to 9 years, but he suspended 4. And he says, you're going to do 5 years in the New Mexico Department of Corrections. And, I kind of like flipped out in the courtroom, and, he's telling my attorney, control your client, da, 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 da. And, so, I go in there and I do my time, and I get out, and I violated my conditions of parole, mind you. And I ended up going back like 2 months later after getting out. and I stayed in there for uh, like another 4 years and a couple of months after already doing 4 years and 5 months. 37, I think it was, when I first went to prison, and an experience, dude. I'm telling you. But yeah, so that's kind of the gist of what was going on. But being in the system, I get in there to the county jail, and this big muscle bound dude, he kind of came up to me and was telling me something about, I can see that you're new here. I'm just going to give you some pointers on what to do, what not to do, and all these things. And so, I kind of took him at his word, and I was listening to what he had to say. But then somebody comes up to me and tells me, he's trying to groom you, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, look at him. He wants to get in your ass, so to speak.
Wow.
And, yeah. And, so that kind of made me a little bit nervous, but, nothing ever happened with that, which is, a godsend. But yeah, so I spent I don't know, maybe a year and a half in the county jail before actually going off to prison. So, but I'm telling you, it was an experience. It really was.
Yeah, especially at that age. That's kind of late in the game.
Right.
Yeah. What was more scary for you, jail or prison?
Prison, because I go from the county jail, I go to the RDC, Regional Diagnostic Center, I think is what it stood for. And so I get off the bus and I'm kind of looking around and I'm seeing all these different units, and it was kind of like it was kind of like an outside thing, but you had all these different buildings, which were the different units and whatnot. It was a thing of having to leave my unit, walk across this big old yard to go to the cafeteria or to go to a medical or to school, those kinds of things. And I just was like tripping out looking at this place, and I'm like, I don't belong here. You know what I mean? And then, I get into one of these pods, and some dude comes up to me and he's like, hey, is your name Robert? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And he said, you don't remember me, do you? And I'm like, no, I don't. What's going on? And, so we ended up getting into a conversation, but then, that kind of turned somewhat violent. And he comes up to my cell right after I met him. He comes up to my cell. He doesn't have a shirt on. He's got these, I don't know what you call them, like workout gloves on. And he was with one of his homies. And he cornered me in my room, in my cell. And his homie was standing next to him, but behind him, like right at the door. And we ended up having to box, and I was like tripping out because I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I've seen in the movies. I didn't really expect it to be like that in real life, but that was like I said, I had done a year and a half in the county jail, and this was probably maybe 3 weeks into being in prison, actually, and or at least the RDC. That's the place where you go there to be classified, and they send you off to whatever prison that I'm supposed to go to. So, I'm thinking, well, if it's like this in the Regional Diagnostic Center, what the hell is actually going to be? What's it going to be like being in an actual prison? And it was a trip, man. I'm telling you, I was like dumbfounded because I'm trying to take all this mess in, trying to figure out, what's really going on. And so I kind of had to learn on my own. I was wary about trying to meet people, because they say, you don't go to prison to meet people. You went in there by yourself. You're going to get out by yourself. And none of these people are going to, they're not really going to have your back. You know what I mean? And it was a trip, man. I'm telling you, it was an experience that I knew almost right away going in that it's not something that I wanted to do. It's just, it wasn't for me, but I had to kind of like conform and try to take everything in, try to learn on my own and not trust people and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it was kind of difficult, but maybe 6 months or so into it, I was into my routine. I kind of had my head on right, but I mentioned a little earlier that I was 37 when I went to prison.
Mm-hmm.
Got locked up and whatnot. And I'm kind of glad that I was a little older because I was seeing a lot of young people in there, and they're gangsters or thugsters or whatever you want to call it. And, so, I'm kind of studying them, keeping my distance. But, I'm watching these people and seeing, how young they are. There's one dude, anyway, I'm not going to mention his name or anything like that, but at any rate, he had a bunch of tattoos all over his face. And so I'm sitting there talking to him one day and he was kind of like looking down. And so his eyelids were, for the most part, closed. And, on one eyelid, it said, fuck. The other eyelid said, you. I was like, what? But it was like he didn't care anymore. And I'm like, hey, dude, how did you even manage to sit through getting somebody to tattoo your eyelids? And he said, oh, don't even trip, dude. I was like high on heroin and I wasn't feeling nothing and this and that. And I'm like, damn, and he's like, I think he was 19. In fact, I originally met him at the county jail. When he came through there, he was looking all young, and I'm like, dude, how old are you? And he told me that he was 19, but I ended up finding out he was like 17 and had gotten charged with a serious crime and was sentenced as an adult. And he had some years to do, a lot of years. And so, like I said, I'm checking out these people, checking out the youngsters and seeing how they act and this and that. And they were in, they call them shit stick pods. And he said that in his pod, it was like loud as hell. You couldn't hear the TV and everybody's yelling and having fun, running up and downstairs. And then I found out that in that pod, one, you don't sleep during the day. And two, when you're up, you're laced up all the time. You can't be walking around in shower shoes. You can't be walking around in your socks, none of that. And then I found out why.
Shit stick.
I was never,
As soon as you said that, I'm like, I do not want to be in that dorm.
Yeah, they tried to put me in there once, and that didn't work out. So that was like, it was hard getting out of that pod. So I figured, you know what? Hey, let me go fight this nigga over here, and then they'll put me in SEG and whatnot, and then when I got out of SEG, they went and put me right back in that same pod. It was rough, man. I'm telling you, but this whole time I'm looking at these people and I'm studying them and I'm hearing conversations and whatnot. And a lot of them just didn't really care at all, about being there. They didn't care that they were going to be down for, 10 plus years or whatever, life for that matter. But their whole way of living was tripping me out because I'm like, okay, so I kind of seen this kind of stuff on the outside, but it seems like it's like 1,000 times worse inside. And so, it was like, I had to kind of like learn quick and because I couldn't trust people, I had to learn on my own. You know what I mean? Like I said, I studied people. I was watching what they were doing, how they were doing it, stuff that they was getting away with and all this kind of thing. And, but by this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be down for a minute. So, let's just get with the program. So I did, so then I started getting in trouble being locked up already. But, my mantra was, what are they going to do? Put me in jail? You know what I mean? So, yeah, it wasn't fun, dude. After a year being down, I was like, I can't wait to get out of here. And those 5 years, it ended up being 4 years and 2 months or something like that, because I had to do 85%. And that 4 years and some change, it seemed like it was an eternity, dude. I was just like, I was tripping out because like, damn, I can't go nowhere. These cops coming in here telling me when to get up, when to go to bed, basically when to go to the bathroom, when to eat. all that kind of thing. And I just was not down with that, man. I'm like, I'm a grown ass man. You're not gonna sit here and tell me what I can do or what I can't do. I'm doing what I'm doing. So, it was rough, but and then I started seeing a bunch of fights. One in particular, in the shit stick pod, they found out that this dude was an ex cop, and so yeah, so two people that were in that cell, had him come over to the cell. They were, gonna go do a spread and eat some food and whatnot. And so he goes in before them into the cell. Now, I do. You don't want to go in there in front of them. And so they get in there, and then the two cellies started fighting with this dude. And I'm standing outside the cell, and I'm looking in, watching what was going on. And like there ended up being 8 people total in that room. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and there's a couple guys that were up on the top bunk, and this dude's on the floor trying to fight and whatnot, getting his ass kicked. So the few of the guys that was kicking his ass, they kind of stepped away, and the two dudes on the top bunk jumped down on him. They jumped and they landed on him, and they was kicking him in the ribs. They was kicking him in the face and all this different stuff. And, and this went on for a little bit, but I guess what ended up happening was, they saw it on the camera. So they sent in a bunch of fucking COs in there and, broke everything up, locked us all down. And I'm standing there at my cell door watching from what I could see anyway. And, they ended up going to get a wheelchair. They brought a wheelchair in there. They put him on the chair, and they was taking him out. And I was like, I don't even know the words to use for this, but basically they beat this dude's ass so bad that the skin on his face was hanging off to the side. His face was entirely red, full of blood. They messed him up so bad. They broke both of his arms. They broke one of his legs. He had a bunch of rib fractures, facial fractures, and this and that. And, so some time had gone by and hadn't seen him. And I went and I asked one of the COs, well, whatever happened to dude? And he told me that the dude died.
Wow.
From that fight. Yeah, he died. And that, but by that point, I had seen some other stuff. So I wasn't involved in it, but it did kind of pump me up a little bit, kind of made me a little bit tougher. I had to like really be on my toes and watching everything around me. And so, that whole experience right there, that kind of taught me some other shit too. But it was a thing of, just staying to myself if I could. I had some homies that I hung out with and whatnot, but I just had a few and select group of friends because I didn't want to be in all that other nonsense. Get into a bunch of fights with a bunch of people. Like gang fights, I guess you could call it. And but at this whole time though, I'm like I said, I've always sat back and observed things, and so over time I got to meet some other youngsters that had been in and out of the system, and then a little bit later, this dude that I was telling you about a little earlier that was, I thought was 19 that had the tats on his eyes, he shows up at that prison. And I was like, hey, what's going on, man? What you been up to? And he says, yeah, well, I was in and out of the county jail and whatnot. And they finally got me is what he said. And evidently, he had been real abusive with his wife and his kids, and severely hurt his kid one day. I guess he was trying to get the boy's attention, and ended up fucking him up and giving him a bunch of injuries, fractures, and whatnot. And they finally just like, you know what, you've been in this system off and on, so look, we're gonna teach you a lesson. And he got sentenced for 18 years for that.
Damn.
And and I'm like, well, I mean, what happened? Why, did this kind of thing happen? And he's like, well, I was hanging out with my homies, and we're doing drive-bys, and we're smoking bud and doing coke and all this kind of stuff. And he's young, and I was like, "What are you thinking, dude?" And he's like, "Well, hey, I didn't have parents in my life, so I did my own thing, and I've heard that kind of thing from a number of different inmates over the years, and so at some point, and me personally, I don't get in people's business, but when I started seeing a pattern like that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to, school some of these youngsters and whatnot, and so I was talking to them, telling them about what life is really about, and they're looking at me all crazy, like they just couldn't understand what the hell I was saying. And I was like, look, dude, you're going to be in here for a minute. You got to kind of take shit serious. Get you some education, get a decent job. Stop hanging out with all these little thugsters. And a couple of them, they're like, who are you? You're not my dad. I'll do what the fuck I want to do.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? That's cool. That's on you. So I kind of stepped back, and I'm watching these people over some time and seeing what they're going through. They're in and out of SEG. They're getting busted for doing dope. One of making hooch, and that was something that I got well at. I got good at making hooch. I will say that.
Is that an alcoholic beverage or like a?
Yeah. So basically, it's there's a number of different ways of making it. But you're
also known as Pruno. Is it also known as Pruno?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So I hadn't heard that word in a minute, but yeah, it's like that. And so I got really good at it. I was so good at making hooch. I took a shitload of Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah, can you explain how you make it, please? That I'm very interested.
Yeah. So basically, you need yeast, you need sugar, and you need, for lack of a better word, bacteria. So when I learned to make it, I originally used oranges. So I would, take the skin off the orange. I'd bite the orange. I kind of not eat it, but just bite it, chew it, and then I would spit it out. And then I would put it in this bag. And then so over time, I was like constantly adding sugar to it. Just sugar. And then I started adding bread for the yeast. And so at some point, I ended up taking it out of the little bag, and I started putting them in the little 12-ounce plastic Coke bottles. And then so they said that, the way to do this is, you keep it warm, you run it under hot water, you wrap it up in towels to make sure it's warm or stays warm. And then you have to burp it by, unscrewing the cap and letting the air out, and then close it back up. And man, that smell, I can't even. Ooh. Man, that was an awful smell. And so I had to do this for about a week. And I would have it hidden under my bunk or in my locker or whatnot. And so after the week was over, I went and I tasted it, and that was a horrible taste. But jailhouse wine, prison wine, whatever you want to call it, it was potent. After 7 days of during the process of making it, it just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And a week was the basic amount of time. You could do it for longer than that if you want, but not before a week, because it didn't really have the punch to it until after a certain time. And so, like I said, I had gotten really, really good at it, so to the point to where I was making what they call starter kits. And so basically, if somebody wanted to do their own thing, they'll put their ingredients in, do what they want to make theirs, and they would come buy a bottle from me, and then take that bottle, add it to what they were making, and that stuff became way potent. And so they would have their little parties and whatnot, in the cells, and getting all drunk and whatnot, and I did too. I'm not gonna lie, but the thing with hooch is, because of all that bacteria and all that other nonsense that's in there, it'll get you fucked up. But what's going to happen is it's going to get you so fucked up that you're either going to end up in a fight or, with another
Ah,
inmate or, doing some crazy shit with the COs and whatnot. And horrible, horrible hangover. I will say that. Horrible hangover. But it got the job done though. You're sitting there on Friday night drinking your little bottle of hooch and, thinking, it's the shit right here. It's like being on the outside and whatnot. But yeah, so that was basically how that was made. But like I said, I had gotten so good at it that I was kind of a connoisseur of it. And so a lot of people started coming to me, uh, buying bottles from me. And it was like, you want this? You want this bottle right here? Give me $40 worth of commissary. And so then I started just doing like that. And so I'd sell a little 12-ounce bottle of hooch for $40. And so then I got caught, of course, and so that didn't work out. I ended up doing, I think it was like 30 days in solitary. I ended up doing, I think it was like 30 days in solitary, and even being in solitary, that shit ain't fun. They take
yeah. Tell
everything
us
you
about
got
that.
from you. Yeah, they take everything you got from you. You go in there with your little boxers and t-shirts and shower shoes and socks, and you have none of your property. So, and I had a lot of stuff. I had books, had uh, a cassette player, MP3 player. I had all kinds of stuff, but I couldn't take none of that in the solitary. And that was like 23-hour lockdown. I would come out 30 days in the morning, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening, to take a shower, kind of walk around, stretch my legs, stuff like that. And then, after that little half hour, I had to go back in the cell. But, so I had to try to like get my shower. I had to get on the phone, and all these things I wanted to work out. And I had to do all this stuff inside of, the hour split up into two breaks or whatever. So, but still, so you got cops walking around, looking in your window, trying to see what you up to and whatnot. And they would do that every, I don't know, half hour or something like that. But I didn't have nothing in there. I didn't have none of my stuff, So I'm like asking them, hey, can you give me a book or something? Give me something. I can't just sit in this cell. But so and then it would take them forever to bring me a book, of course. And so it's like I was trying to work out in my cell, doing sit-ups, push-ups, just different things, trying to find a different way to exercise, and just having no communication with nobody except for the cop that came to the window or to the door. And this stuff went on night after night after night. No TV to watch, no music to listen to. It was just you just heard people yelling, across the pod at other people and shit like that. And it was just it was not a place to be. But I mean, it did give me a moment to sit there and think. So that was the one good thing that came out of being in solitary. But so I was trying to get my head right and whatnot. And I've been in and out of solitary for I can't even tell you how many times. But yeah. So it was just a thing of having to be locked up in your cell, nobody really to talk to except for the other dudes in the pod. But it's like you're hearing them yelling across the pod, yelling and laughing and talking and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what? I don't want no part of that. So I was pretty much on my own in solitary. I didn't really talk to too many people in solitary. There was one guy that I actually did talk to. He was my next door neighbor, and we were talking through the vent. And he was asking me about myself, and I wasn't really trying to give out information. So I started trying to be selective of what I said. And so basically, the end of this conversation was the fact that he was a man of God, and he was older than I was, and so I figured, because he's older, he's got his head on right, I can listen to this dude. So we talked all the time. He kind of helped me with some stuff. He taught me how to pray, and how the right way to read the Bible, stuff like that, and so I did learn a lot from him. So I was real grateful to this dude, and I never did get his name. That's the weird part. I never got his name, but But anyway, so I do my little 30 days at a time or however much time they have me in there. And, so I'm getting out of solitary. I'm going back to what I call freedom. And if you
Wow.
want to,
Yeah,
yeah,
ironic, huh?
right. Yeah. So, I get out and I'm like, I'm free, and I be jumping around, running around, doing this and that and trying to get back into, society, so to speak, hook up with my friends, people I ain't seen for a minute, and then it was just, and then, I get out and I found out that, some people got transferred to another prison. Some got into serious fights and they were in medical for a long time. And, it just was like, what the hell did I get myself into? And, so, I would see fights with, COs and an inmate. There was one in particular that I saw that I'll never forget. I'm standing there, looking out my cell window, outside, and so they were trying to do this outside of the camera. So I didn't get the entire picture, but I did see enough of what was going on. There was this female CO, and she wore rings on all of her fingers. Now I always wondered why that was, big bulky rings. And so they had this dude on his knees. This woman was beating the hell out of this dude, hitting him in the face, hitting him all over his body with all these rings and whatnot. And then at some point I ended up going to SEG, and I happened to be next door to this dude. And so I kind of found out a little bit about what happened. And evidently now this woman, she wasn't the prettiest woman, she was no thin woman either. And he said that he called her Mimi from the Drew Carey show, if you remember who she is.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yep. I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah. Glasses,
Yeah.
all
So,
that.
yeah, she wasn't too far off though, but she ended up beating his ass. And the other two
Damn.
COs that were there, they beat his ass. They kept him in medical for almost a month before letting him out of medical to send him to SEG. But they wanted
Man.
him to heal up, is what it was. They wanted him to heal up before he
Wow.
went. Right. Yeah. I'm telling you, dude, it's nothing fun, nothing at all fun about it. It's like a dog eat dog world in there. You got to do what you got to do to survive. And, but like I said a little earlier, I'm running into all these youngsters and I'm trying to school them by this point, because I had already been down for maybe 3 years or so, by the time this situation happened with the dude getting beat up. And so, I kind of started looking at things different, trying to school these youngsters, tell them, you got to think about your life, dude. Some of you people are going to get out and, you can't go out into society acting like you acted in here because you're going to end up back. And, and it was true. It really was. People did come back and, and I'm like, dude, when did you get out? They're like, oh, I got out 3 or 4 months ago. And I'm like, damn, you back already? Yeah. So
Man.
it was a mess.
Let me ask you, last question, then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could talk, because this is a great conversation, by the way, and thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Of course.
If you could talk to some kids out there who are running the streets, committing crimes, doing drugs, hanging out with bad kids, basically going down the road that you yourself went down that eventually led you to prison. If you could sit down and talk to, those kids right now, if you had a room full of them, what would you say?
I would tell them to listen to their parents. You may not like your parents, but they really have your best interest at heart. They're just trying to put you on the right track. Listen to your parents. Get an education. Do something with your life. Do something positive with your life. Don't hang around all these little thugsters because it's not going to get you anywhere. Like I said, you went in there by yourself. You're leaving by yourself. These people don't care about you. But just, get your head on right. Use this time to think, think about what you did. Think about the life that you led before it got you here in prison. And do the right thing. You don't have to hang out and try to look like you're big and bad in front of all these people. You don't have to do that. Just, think, listen to the adults that are older than you and they're trying to give you some advice. And just, stay away from all that madness, because it's not going to get you anywhere, and then, think about your family, think about your kids, they don't want you in there. They want to get you out of there, but think about your actions and how it's affecting other people. It's not about you. It's about your family, especially if you got kids. Do the right thing. Teach your kids, get out of here, have a productive life, raise your kids right, get an education if you haven't gotten one in prison. Just stay away from all that madness, because all it's going to do is get you right back where you just came from. And you don't want to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's basically what I would tell them, because I think I kind of covered it all, trying to school them a little bit, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But for those who have not been in the system yet, what my mom used to always say, think, think, think. And when you're done thinking, think again. Because people on the outside, they really don't even care about you. You know what I'm saying? So, you got to live this life on your own. You got to, man up, and do what's right, stay out of the system, because it is nothing good. It's not. It's nothing good.
You hear that, kids? When you're locked up, ain't nobody on the outside checking for you. You got all of your homies out here, right? All your boys, your ride or die homies, man. That's my dog. We going down for life, blah, blah, blah. Once you're locked up, ain't nobody calling you, right?
Right. Exactly. And they say that people that got mail, got something in the mail, they called mail love.
Wow.
Like, I got love, getting mail. And for a long time, I didn't get any mail, so I was kind of like, damn, But anyway, but it ain't the place to be, y'all. It ain't the place to be. So yeah, but I've been out for a while, so I got my life right finally. Got a good, decent job. I'm working 40 hours a week. I got my money. I got my own apartment. And I got my own stuff. And think about this. When you go to prison, whatever it is that you have in your house or apartment, don't even think about that. Yeah, don't even think about that. Right. And you get your little possessions in prison. And one more thing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep you here.
Please take your time. I love this conversation. I'm in no rush.
So when every now and then they'll have these shakedowns. And so, at some point, I had a bunch of stuff, and then they're like, hey, well, here's these 2 big plastic bags here, trash bags. Put all your stuff in there, take your mattress, take your sheets off your mattress, and go to the gym. So we'd have to take all our worldly possessions that we had to the gym, and then they would go through your stuff and tell you what you can and can't have. And a lot of times, I would have, by the time it was all said and done, I'd have about 3/4 worth of the stuff that I actually had. So they're going in there, going through my shit, telling me what I can and can't have. And I told this one CEO, I said, what would it be like for you if somebody came into your house and shook your house down and told you what you can and can't have? And one of the CEOs was like, hey, well, they can't do that. I'm the CEO. But he just didn't understand. He didn't understand where I was coming from. And, so the stuff that I did have, it was precious to me. And, and then they tell me that, I can't have this book because it's half torn up. I can't have my little Walkman because it looks like it was altered. My serial number and my name and inmate number were scratched off, and they called that stuff contraband. So they take my stuff, dude. And so then I had to work hard to get enough money to buy another Walkman. Are you serious? But anyway, it's but anyway, but yeah, they'll even strip you down. In fact, they'll have you stand in your cell, face the wall, take your clothes off, squat down and cough, and you got these people looking at your ass and shit like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
lift your nuts. Make sure you ain't got nothing under you, nothing that you're not hiding stuff, and then tell you to go to the gym with your stuff, only wearing boxers and your shower shoes, and then you go in there, you put your stuff down. They tell you to go sit over there by the wall, face the wall, no talking, that kind of thing, while they went through, or while they were going through other people's stuff, and then they would call you over and have you take out all your stuff. They won't take it out. They wanted you to do it. So you put all your stuff there on the table, and don't have contraband, because they'll write you up for that. And then what you say, as I said earlier, what are they gonna do? Lock me up? Yeah, they sure did. When I say lock you up, that meant SEG. And then of course you had to have the hearing, and you get sentenced to extra time, or they take stuff from you. You can't have no visits for a month, no phone calls for an undetermined amount of time. So it's just like, and then now here's the thing, they'll come into the pod, and they're like, all right, lock it down, da 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 da, and so we'd all have to lock it down. And then at some point, maybe an hour or so later, whenever they started coming through, ask them, hey, what happened? Why are we locked down? I don't know. They knew. And so this particular lockdown, when I asked the cop that, we ended up, it was a statewide lockdown, as a matter of fact.
Oh.
And so what they were doing were these shakedowns in all these prisons. So we had to be locked down for a minute, only being able to come out to take a shower every 3 days. They slide your food under the door, or they'll bring it into the pod, and everybody's got to come out of the pod and stand in a line. And that was almost like freedom in and of itself, because, we're standing in a line waiting to get our food, and we're chopping it up with our homies and whatnot, trying to catch up on, what was going on and this and that. And then we get our food and we go back to the cell. And stay in the cell, hours to go by. And again, like, hey, how long we going to be in lockdown? I don't know. But I'm telling you, having to go through that madness, it's like a violation of a sort. So I kind of, at some point, I kind of understood what a lot of women go through when they're, when they're abused by their husbands, boyfriends, or raped, or this and that. And they always talked about being violated, and I didn't really snap to that too much until I started having these massive shakedowns when they come in and they take all my stuff. I felt like I was violated, and at some point, I had such I had PTSD. I had a bunch of different things going on, and to add this to it, it was hard, man. I'm telling you, it was hard to have to go through that, and then have to do it every 6 months. So so after a while, I was kind of numb to the whole thing at some point. But still, that didn't take away from the fact of feeling violated. It's nothing good, man. They go in there, they take all your stuff. It's not good, dude. It's not.
Listen up, kids. Listen up. This man is telling you straight from his mouth. He had to go through it. Let me ask you before we head out, because it sounds like you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts on this as well. Let's go into a bigger scheme of things. Uh-huh. Do you see prison as modern day slavery?
Yes.
That's
a big yes. It is, because so they would come into the pod 3, 4 o'clock in the morning in the wintertime, and like, work detail. I'm like, what's this about? So they get half the people out of the pod, and they would take us to certain areas, like this one prison. It had snowed really bad, a lot of ice and whatnot, and they give us these shovels and have us breaking up ice, shoveling snow and this and that. But what was fucked up about it was this, we did all this in the administrative part of the prison. They wanted the sidewalks cleared off, so, people coming to visit their family, they won't slip and fall and whatnot. But they'd have us out there at 3 a.m. breaking up ice and shoveling. And then other times they would take us to certain parts of the prison to get this, rake rocks. What?
What?
Yeah, they wanted us to rake the rocks. They wanted us to take a shovel. I'm not a shovel. What the hell is it called? Anyway, basically, yeah, they want us to take this tool and draw lines, straight lines from one end all the way down to the other end. A bunch of straight lines through the rock. They wanted the rocks to look pretty.
Wow. Bro.
They would have us go out to pull weeds. And I started noticing that we were going to the same places over and over and over again. So I was like, what are they doing? Are they like planting weeds just so we can go out there and pull weeds? But we would do that for hours, and it's hot as hell out there. And they give you a little bottle of water. You'd be working for 3-4 hours. Then they bring you something to eat. You can kind of sit back and relax for a minute. You know what I'm saying? And just breathe. And then, we eat, and then we're back to work, pulling more weeds. And a lot of these weeds were in these rocks that they wanted us to rake. I thought they was doing that mess on purpose. That was how I looked at it, because they wanted us. They just really wanted to humiliate us and just break up the routine and whatnot. Because I hated having to go out for work detail. I hated it. But I had to do it. I didn't have a choice. It was either do that or go to SIG. And so I just kind of conformed to the program and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, like I said, they'll come in at all odd hours of the day to have you do this mess. And a lot of it was overnight sometimes, as far as like in the wintertime when we were shoveling and breaking up ice. But, and it's cold as hell outside. We got this thin ass coat that we had to wear. It didn't keep us warm, none of that. But, it's like I said, you had to do it or go to SIG. So it's like, which is better? So, I had to conform. But, yeah, it's crazy.
Man, Robert, I really appreciate you sharing your story with my audience, and I guarantee you've deterred. You will. This video is going to be around forever when you and I are long gone, and I guarantee it's going to deter someone out there from going to prison, and that's my mission right there. If I can just deter one kid, then I'm good.
Right, yeah. So kids, listen, please, and as my mom used to say, think, and then when you're done thinking, think again.
Yes, I love that quote. That's my favorite quote in a long time, man.